everybody to this, the first, the most amazing, the Kerfuffle Show. This is WMD. Whale, Minster, Ants. How is everybody here today, people?
Really good, thanks.
Look at that! Look at the excitement on Richie's face. He loves these ones. How much training? How much notice did I give you on this, Rich?
Weeks, Simon. Weeks.
It was, isn't it?
40 minutes.
It definitely wasn't on Friday. I've come up with a name. It's a good name, but I haven't really got any content. But we'll worry about that later. But it's too good, isn't it? It just, look, sometimes WMD, it just lays you. It lays you in the direction we need to go in. And we need to say we've been bad boys, haven't we? We've been bad boys in a number of different areas. We've been bad boys, though, mainly to ourselves, because we actually, all we do is talk about the wonderful 700 suppliers that are on our site, and we don't actually do a particularly good job of telling people what we do, I think, if we're honest. What do you agree with that? This isn't a disciplinary, but it could be.
Can I have a member of my union come and represent me, please?
Don't you know I'm a big fan of Lynch. Don't go that way. Yeah, we don't, do we? I genuinely think we could do with actually letting people know, because we're doing a huge amount of things at the moment, and we're gonna start with the main three. Of course, people tend to know that we help out, obviously, with supplier advice, supplier inquiries, troubles with existing suppliers for estate agents. That's the most obvious one we've been known on. Secondly, we're known for Campus, what we term our agency version of Netflix, helping people on a training front. And then thirdly, probably least known, is we do a lot of consultancy with agents, helping out in a variety of different areas. So I thought this would be a nice way of us just talking it through and frankly showing off about how brilliant we are. But that'll hopefully you two will tone down the arrogance, because otherwise I'm gonna go to a very
very humble.
So yeah, I don't think, Simon, we talk about ourselves enough. So we talk about what we do for suppliers, but actually a lot of agents would still say, I've seen you everywhere. Yeah. What do you do? Yeah. And it's actually what we do behind the scenes which makes the business great, rather than what we're doing on the platform.
I've almost had to just give up apologising to you on every meeting we go, don't I? Where I say, "Oh, I'm the Mr. Tumble of the character," but Rich is Mr. Detail. But there's some great stuff we're doing, and we need to be better at it. So anyway, let's kick off with that first one, the first and most obvious one. One thing I'm very proud of, I mean, there's loads of things I'm proud of, probably the merch most of all, but people forget that before we started this little old company a while back, there was no proper A to Z even of the suppliers in there. Agents had a vague idea that there was loads of suppliers and prop tech out there, and we've at least brought it all into one place. We've categorized it, we've done it via solution. So if you're looking for the best sales progression outsourced operation there, you can go and have a good look. If you're looking for CRM, it's all in one place, and all wonderfully underpinned by the reviews part of the package, the platform, which keeps us honest, doesn't it?
So as an innovative company, we've created the yellow pages of PropTech.
Yeah. So am I saying now the print bill's gone through the roof?
But on that point though, I think, and this might hook into something that we talk about later, but peer reviews are so important to us as Kerfuffle, obviously, but it is also important to other agents so that they can get a benchmark of whether or not solutions working for you. And one of the most common questions we get asked by an agent is, can I talk to another agent that has used this solution? And what better way of sort of doing that than getting reviews together? So it's essential that agents get into the habit of leaving reviews. They don't all need to be good, and they don't all need to be bad. They just need to be honest. And I think the value that delivers to the industry, not even to Kerfuffle, I must say, but just to your peers in the industry, there is nowhere else that they can turn to for this information all in one place. So as a free resource, take advantage of it.
And can I add to that even further? So there's one thing, the public reviews, there's the other reviews which we see behind the scenes, which obviously logged onto the agent dashboard, but it's quite strange that you'll see, supplier A scoring top marks on the public site, but actually when agents ask us about what the behind the scenes scores are, there's a variance because people may be nervous to leave a negative review, but they're not nervous to leave it on their own private dashboard.
It's a really good point, that, Rich, isn't it? We need to sort of make people understand that a little bit better. Is that I still think there's massive value because everyone, we never have anonymized, reviews. So it's not like, the loonies on Property Industry Eye comments page. They'll go off and stand behind some sort of, some sign on. No, if you're going to say something positive, you're going to say something negative. You need to be able to obviously register and have that validated there. But what has been very clear, even with some quite well-known cases, I mean, famously there was Cream Club, which went through this industry like a bad case of COVID, really, and yet publicly there was never any. On social media, there was, because of course the story was there was quite a litigious thing going on there. Nobody would have ever known that unless you were in the right groups, and I think that's something we've been very keen to make sure that doesn't happen with our platform. So from the get-go, to be able to have those public testimonials is great. But yes, underneath, every client has the ability, don't they, to build their own dashboards free of charge, absolutely free of charge, and put the suppliers that they use on a daily basis, both good and bad, in there. And they use it for a variety of sources, don't they? So they can upload their contracts. So rather than being lost in filing cabinets or email boxes or DocuSign, they can put them all in one place. They can put the costs in just to keep a nice simple tally of what they're spending on PropTech and different suppliers. And crucially, of course, helping them on the management side of things, they can put when those contracts are up for renewal so that they can genuinely, rather than it's on the day of renewal and they just have to sign up, they can take time and energy and make the best decisions, can't they, about those suppliers that they want to rely want to go forward with.
So I think there's 2 points from that. One point is the renewal date. What a lot of agents are now doing is a lot of suppliers are getting wise to, we don't want to tie people in for 5-year, 2-year contracts. But agents are also, historically, we may say, I'm going to try that for 3 months and see if it works. And all of a sudden, 18 months later, you're still paying for it and never reviewed it. So they're using the contract expiry date as essentially a review date for them to review that particular service or product, but they're doing it religiously. So they're doing it every 3 months. But going back to that secret NPS score, and we've got a video waiting, we're just checking out legally. ARPM, who obviously disappeared owing what seems to be millions of pounds of deposit monies, we have an agent on video ready to go live when we are prepared to risk hitting the button, where they phoned us 5 months before it publicly went into administration, and asked us if we had any positive or negative reviews for it. The NPS score within a sort of the back of our system took a huge decline. There was lots of comments about struggling to get my tenants' deposits back, requesting the money back. It's taking 8 weeks. It always used to take 7 days. And based on that, we relayed it back to the agent, and we put him in contact with a couple of people who had left very, very negative internal reviews. And as a consequence, they made a decision not to outsource their property management. And obviously, famously, ARPM 4 months later just went pop.
And we should be quite popular there, shouldn't we? Really, I mean, being really honest, that's a proper canary in the cage warning system, that, isn't it?
And we can only do that the more and more agents who are prepared to put in their private NPS scores. We will clearly never share them with anybody else without permission, but we will anonymise them and we will see trends.
It's really important, that, isn't it? We really need to get across to people that the success of this will not be down to us having the best pink merch out there. It is that community element there, and you get out what you put into this, don't you? And exactly right. If you can put this, if you put stuff in there, we'll be able to share it with you, and everyone wins on that basis. We will get rid of and we're lucky, aren't we? Hopefully there aren't too many rogue traders out there, but they can cause tremendous damage, can't they?
Yeah, but you know what? This has been an ongoing industry discussion, sort of behind closed doors on different groups and different messages and so on. But this is a small industry. We do tend to share news. It tends to be the more negative news that is more like salacious gossip. People want to hear it. You cannot afford to form a business opinion around that kind of gossip. You've got to form your business position based on other people's NPS scores in terms of the way that they've been treated, and that filters through every single part of that service, really, whether it can be relied on. What it comes down to is trust, and that's really the NPS scores. To be honest, we may as well just call them trust ratings, because that's really effectively trust and satisfaction are the biggest parts of it.
And what they also do, David, is they allow us to inform agents where there may be a slight risk or what they're being told may not be completely correct. So again, I'm clearly not going to name them, but there's one supplier who promises to deliver the onboarding in a set period of time.
Yep.
What we know from our NPS scores is every single agent has said, 10 out of 10, 10 out of 10, onboarding was delayed by 8 weeks, onboarding was delayed by 12 weeks.
Yeah.
So at the point they're signing a contract, they're being told onboarding is going to be in 2 weeks' time. Yeah. We know that it's not. So what we're able to do is inform the agents to say, have an expectation that it's not going to be in 2 weeks' time. Alternatively, get something written into your contract to protect yourself. But if it's not in 2 weeks' time, there's an outcome, a positive outcome for you. And based on all of that sort of NPS stuff, we are able to advise agents correctly.
Yeah. And suddenly much more relevant, aren't we? So we started off obviously just wanting to get simple reviews in, but one of the lovely enhancements that I'm sure many people watching this won't know is one of the more recent additions just to the review process is we also ask people, who did you used to use previously, aka who have you upgraded to? Because as important as it is to know who your, how your next potential partner supplier is going to perform, it counts 10 times more if you know how they've actually managed the process of upgrading from the package that you're actually on, doesn't it? If you think about some of those complex things like CRM, website, email provision and nurturing there, those are really tricky onboarding processes, aren't they? So to have had somebody go through the same journey, walk in their shoes, is vital.
The key one at the moment that's doing the rounds is obviously Dupix is still, I think we're just under 6 months away from it disappearing altogether. And so there are still a lot of agents out there trying to choose their next CRM. And the most frequent question is, what's the data migration like? And the only real answer to that is to hear from an agent that has used the same system that you're on, migrated across to that new CRM, and how much work was involved and whether they lost data along the way and what the process was like. There's nothing that quite beats that.
Because here's the thing that would happen back to you, isn't it? If you were, when we were sat wonderfully in the good old days and me sat opposite you, you're talking to me, and of course, Simon, you do data conversion. yeah, we do data conversion. Let's move on now. Let's move on. Because here's the thing: there's not a supplier in the industry that wouldn't say they don't have a data conversion process, do they?
Yeah.
But there is a spectrum of competence that is massive, isn't there? And it's not just in CRM, it's in all different sorts of areas. Are you bringing across the archive database? Are you bringing across calendar information? Are you bringing across brochures if it's, again, CRM? So there's a real, what would you have done differently question to somebody who was on your package moving to this new one can save literally weeks and months of tears.
Yeah,
I'm all about the tears. We need a few negative shocks to do this. But let's look at a couple of positives there. So our job is, as we said, we do these wonderful MOTs where people can come talk about their existing tech stacks, which, as we always say, resemble a Jenga pile ready to fall over. And we talk about how we can hopefully improve the ones that are not in a good place, or of course, if we can't better the position, we'll give them alternative suppliers, or we'll tell them if they haven't got a solution for a particular problem in their business, what tools they might want to potentially review. And so, who's got, for me, a success story that they can share that because of those MOTs that we've done, we've been able to help somebody out? And we don't have to name them, but it'd be nice if you can talk in a bit of detail.
We've got some recent ones, and this one comes from I was going to call them a single branch independent, but that doesn't really do them justice. They are, you know, it's an extremely large and mature business. But one of the things that all businesses in the state agency tend to struggle with is lead management. We've always struggled with it. Yeah. We know that everybody deserves a response. That's the standard line. Everybody should get a prompt response. And if you talk to people like Peter Knight at the Property Academy about what response time is acceptable, I think what we've all understood is that you're meant to communicate back with the customer in the way that they communicated with you. So you get a text message, you send a text message back. You get an email, it's clear that they want a conversation on email, you should email them back. And that what frustrates customers very often is when they send you an email, but you choose to pick up the phone. Whether that might be more convenient for you, in actual fact, it's not what the customer wants.
Generation Z will look at that phone as if, who the hell do they think they are?
It feels silent, Simon, so I wouldn't hear it anyway.
It is a massive generational challenge as well. So I think what's key is that obviously what makes our lives as estate agents a lot easier is implementing lead management systems, so that we don't have to physically respond to each and every one, and that we've got some sort of natural filtering process in there, because as Richard will tell you, not every tenant inquiry was created equal, not every vendor inquiry is created equal, and there is a massive disparity, isn't there? We hear this all the time. There's a massive disparity just amongst the portal inquiries themselves as to what the quality is for both separated out into sales and lettings, and then into the different constituent groups. So it's really essential that if you want your staff to sort of work cleverly, and you want your teams to be most efficient, they need to have a system that will automatically respond to people. And perhaps actually the basic word we're looking for is to triage the inquiries and work out which of those actually need sort of your personal care and attention. So this little stat that I'm going to give you, this has come in from an agent that has implemented that, and previously they were going through the same processes that we all were for many years. You get in the morning, you check that inbox, and you start to divvy up all those, you know, Rightmove inquiries, Zoopla inquiries, all the generic stuff that's also been put together by your own website. So there's a real mountain of inquiries, and that first part of the morning is always taken up with working out how many of those is Simon going to call back, how many are Richard going to call back, and also chasing actually that they've already done the ones from yesterday. So it's a massive kind of ongoing project, and we used to refer to it as air traffic control, because we used to have a lady, Gina, who sat in the office, and she would say, right, David, you've got 10 coming in now, Josh, you've got another 12, and this is what we had to do. Lead management systems take away all of that chore, really, and this particular agent has reported that they managed to sort of reduce the number of inquiries that they had to sort of physically deal with by a good 40%, but that actually led to them having their highest let numbers since basically coming back after COVID, which for a branch of their size is a ridiculous number of lets to get through. So it allows them to sort of laser focus on the inquiries that are going to result in business being written, which is superb in terms of ROI.
But also, because they've got an instant response, they're meeting people's expectations who they may not ordinarily call, because, you know, out of the area, don't meet the affordability criteria, only leave a home number,
Yeah.
probably aren't going to get a phone call back when they email info@estateagentoffice.com.
No.
Whereas what they're receiving on the leads management tools is that sort of autoresponder out, which could be a number of questions which would put them off potentially.
Yeah. Yeah, and people have got to get it out of their heads as well that it's just the high street where their competitors are, you know, that they're being judged against their literally local competition. Often you're being judged against other people, you know, that are out there providing either a digital experience or whatever else. And so don't act surprised when you start getting 1-star, 2-star reviews if you've gone back to them 2 days later thinking how clever you are, when actually the expectation levels have gone through the roof now, haven't they, with what people perceive as needing to get a response to their inquiries. I mean, you're fine if you're competing with solicitors, I suppose, but that's one bad example.
That's just it. I think we are sort of judged by an SLA now that we as an industry have set remarkably high. That we want it to be the best experience and as smooth as possible. And most agents, when you tell them the amount of time that you think they should respond within, they'll shrug their shoulders and say, look, that's ridiculous. But the point we're trying to make here is that let the tech do the heavy lifting for you. We understand that it is impossible for you to respond to every inquiry personally within a set time frame. Make sure that you have something in place that at least the customer feels like you're getting back to them very, very quickly indeed.
Spot on.
So it does that consumer experience, doesn't it? Meeting the now world we live in. My experience of it is what it also does is allows the agent to have better conversations, because essentially you can filter down. So, going in a sales business, the conversation you have, David, with somebody who is a local house to sell, not on market, who wants to view a property, will start and finish very different than the conversation you're going to have somebody out of area, not on market, or out of area sold. But you have to prepare yourself for that.
Yeah.
It's quite not the worst job in the world, is it? Being able to recommend nice solutions like this that kind of work.
Well, another one which is interesting, I'll throw into the mix as well, because this is probably forms one of the most common areas of concern for an agent.
Yeah.
So when we sit down, we do an MOT with somebody, we will always try. Yes, we'll gladly sit through your entire tech stack and we'll make a list of it all and try and get it in order. But very often we'll ask you, what are your 3 pain points at the moment?
Yeah.
And always, if you give an agent an option to fill those top 3 slots, it doesn't matter how big an agent they are, how successful they are, one of those 3 slots is always going to be taken up with generating valuations and instructions, and they want to know how they can increase conversion rate. So this is quite interesting. It's not a new solution by any means, but it is a tried and tested solution that has been really probably one of the stars of the post-COVID era. Over the past 2 or 3 years, it's seen some massive uptake. But Akaboom has, for this particular agent that installed it, on their sales side, they saw an instruction increase of about 26%. So an actual noticeable difference that they're converting more than they were previously. And that, again, is in a tough market where it's hard to secure those instructions. And the lettings, because you can also use it for lettings. So the letting side of the business saw a conversion rate of roughly speaking 85% valuation to instruction, which is, for the amount that they do, I can't stress enough, this is a huge win.
Yeah, I think I know the agent you're talking about, and look, the key thing here is that everyone always giggles about that whole trite line where you need one more instruction to pay for this. But because it was seen as so cheesy, people stopped using the ROI justification here. But we're talking, we're talking a world of difference there, aren't we, to just winning one instruction? Those are fantastic figures.
Those are great figures, and let's face it, what defines you as an agent in a market where there's so much competition for that piece of business is how much those vendors or those landlords are actually going to remember you and your pitch by the time that they're finished and seen everybody. Because don't forget, we're all experienced.
Yeah.
We're all the most efficient agents you'll ever meet, and we're all the best value for money. Those messages are going to be constant, but if you want to stay in front of those people, you need to have a very thorough pre-valuation process, but also the follow-up is super important. In fact, if I was listening correctly to another podcast, but I think Martin Baum, when he's training people, he says that they need to split that job into thirds, so that you spend a third of the time before evaluation, a third of the time in the room, and then a third of the time following up on the instruction. Akaboom is one of those things that again takes the heavy lifting out of the before and after, and you get to concentrate on your pitch in the room, which I think is invaluable.
2 points on that, David. One is I heard from somebody last week the fortunes in the follow-up.
Yeah,
and
that's a lovely. Oh.
Yeah, I'll claim it as my own. I came up with the fortunes in the follow-up.
We should do a T-shirt with that in. Rich's phase, fortunes in the follow-up.
Love it.
But also on that, and whether it's Akaboom or whether it's similar products, it's also about how much effort and time the agent's prepared to put into the material they're prepared to put out. So again, speaking to agents, we know what's working, what's not working. Clearly, lots of stuff is confidential, but I know of an agent who's used Akaboom, and what they've created is a series of documents within their valuation form around processes. So, for argument's sake, what to do if your tenant falls in arrear, how to serve a Section 8, all of this stuff. But obviously, they're getting notifications through. Now, nobody's opening a document on Section 8 unless they've got a tenant in arrears, not paying the rent, who they need to evict. So all of a sudden, the agent's getting notifications. At times, it's probably a good idea to be contacting that landlord. And you could do the same in sales, couldn't you? What happens at the end of your sole agency agreement? What happens if I haven't sold after my 12-week, whatever it may be? They've got to spend as much time developing the content as they do on the living room sofa.
Spot on, absolutely perfect. Well, David, that's a lovely collection of recommendations there. So I think we've done that to death for this one. Now let's talk about training. Let's talk about campus. Obviously, we've got this fantastic sort of platform for improvement, development. We've got almost 100 videos of the likes of Julian O'Dell on there, but we've got everyone coming on board already on there. Chris Watkins been kind enough to give us his content, hasn't he? We've got some stuff from Tony Morris on there. We've just done, let's talk about it. We've just done a brilliant tie-up with the amazing Charlotte Campbell from Able Agent, haven't we? Where you can get both of these, both our membership and our campus, and her Able Agent for under £100 a month a branch. I mean, that's. I mean, I know I'm biased, but that's pretty good value, isn't it?
At that price, I'll have 3.
Yeah, this isn't Greg's day. Come on. Stop
trying to stay enthusiastic.
But it's okay. So talk about everyone understands, I think, what LMSs are these days. Learning management systems, training platforms. We've got one. Tony Morris has got one out there. The likes of Property Mark have got them. Everyone's got them. But the key thing is about the content, isn't it? The content and what you can do with this. So what have we got that we can talk about that we've been able to do? Rich, were you talking about one earlier about a particular example?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of points from it. One is what we've tried to do with Campus is go outside of the standard agency, how to negotiate an offer, how to convert a listing, all of that sort of stuff, which is vitally important. But the world's changed, hasn't it? So you've got Paul Long doing half an hour on retargeting on Facebook.
Yeah.
You've got the guys at PVS telling you the rules of thirds on where you should be standing, where you should be displaying text.
Yeah.
So there's lots of stuff which is really, really important, but I'm not convinced there is a training course or you can hire a trainer to be. What I think you're referring to is we've been working with an agent whose biggest challenge is they understood the importance of training.
Yep.
They really wanted it, but to get anybody to do it was really tough. getting their staff to do it. And actually what we've developed is they've got the usual issue of staff retention at the moment.
Yeah.
And that is a number of things. One is people resign and there's no talking them round when actually they haven't been promoted for a period of time and they're probably working above the level that they should be.
Yeah.
But also you'll get people who have been working there for 3 months saying, I want to be an office manager and unless you promote me, I'm going to leave.
Yeah.
And what we've worked on with them is a really clear roadmap of what each role looks like. And they've incorporated training and campus on that. So, for example, if you are a junior negotiator, they believe it helps with their recruitment process where every role has a defined progression. So David's coming in as a junior negotiator. How do I get to be a branch manager? Well, actually, you go from a junior neg to a neg. You go from a neg to a lister and. Well, what does that consist of? And it is clearly defined and outlined. But part of that may be, for argument's sake, to get from a junior neg to a neg, you need to have been trained, you need to be working here for 12 months. You need to have, I don't know, accompanied 100 viewings, tied up 1,500 offers, agreed 50 sales, whatever it must be. But what they've also incorporated it into is you must have completed course 1, 2, and 3 on campus. But then what they're also doing, which is really nice, is they're creating their own campus content.
So they're able to do it themselves. This is one of the lovely things I like about it, isn't it? This is just saying, this is our worldview. Agents themselves can essentially have their ring-fenced version, can't they?
Yeah, we used to play a game in our branches a long time ago. We called it branch bingo. And every morning we'd go into a branch and there'd be 50 balls, each with a number. And each number was a question. So that number might have been, right, David, pick a ball.
26.
26. David, if you are living on High Street, what's the nearest bus route to get into the town? Who's the head teacher of St. Joseph's Primary School? All of that sort of stuff.
Yeah,
because you need to know that sort of stuff when you're speaking to people.
Yeah.
And what they've done,
that's a skill that is so overlooked. That local knowledge is what makes you that local agent.
Yep. So what this agent have done is they're using campus, they're using it as part of their development roadmap, which is helping on recruitment, but also retention. Because when David comes to me in 3 months' time saying, I want a promotion, that's brilliant, David. Have we met the requirement? No, you haven't completed this quiz, you haven't done this, you haven't done that. But also they're adding their own content, which encourages that training mentality in their business.
You know what? On a side note, Rich, I think it's probably something that we don't do enough in the industry. It is that when we do get new recruits, we should give them a roadmap so that they understand how you get from A to B to C. I mean, in the old days, I think I remember somebody said to me, if I worked hard enough, I'd be able to drive a BMW 3 Series one day.
Oh, nearly there, buddy.
But the point is, that means nothing to me as a young junior neg working hard. Yeah, we know we're going to have to work hard. It's part of the job. But in reality, if somebody had come along and said, actually, David, once you've completed this set of competencies, we'd like you then to move on to look at this. It's a very clear progression.
What they've also done really well is they have given salary ranges for each role. So again, if David is a junior negotiator, and again, completely making up the numbers, his salary range may be 16 to 22 with an OTE of 35, whatever it may be. And then David's not going to come up to me within the first 6 months saying, I know I haven't completed quiz 1, 2, and 3, but I want to earn 25 as a basic. The conversation is, David, we'd love to pay you 25. We can't wait for it, but you need to progress from a junior to a neg, and you know what you've got to do. And a lot of that is to do with training and development.
You've told us. And it's the whole point, isn't it? No one can be in any doubt. It's the expectation level. It's all transparent and everything else there, rather than that of feeling I've been passed over because of X, Y, Z.
And it replaces that old fear that if you train somebody up then basically you're just training somebody up for the competition. But I suppose if you are acknowledging their thirst for knowledge and perhaps to attain a new challenge and a new role, well, then you're not necessarily just training them up so that they go and leave to go somewhere else. You're training them up so that you can utilize it yourself.
Yeah.
That was the old Richard Branson quote, wasn't it, though? Was it? What was it? Train people well enough so they can leave, treat them well enough so they don't want to. That's what you're talking about, isn't it, really? Is make sure you actually put it in. Okay, that's great. That's great stuff there. Right. Well, let's get to the final elements of what we do then as well, which is as our core skills, I would say, around the consultancy side of things. So as you just said there earlier, David, what we're very, I think, quite adroit at is asking, what are the three main issues you're facing in the business at the moment? And normally we can jump into stuff. And actually, this is where, of course, they can come to me for pseudo tech issues, which I'll pretend I know about. But you guys obviously have a huge amount of knowledge from the agency world, from the marketing world, from that element. So you get involved in some really interesting areas, don't you?
Yeah, we do. And you know what? Sometimes the pitfalls of asking that question about what your three major pain points are is that we very often, if we were to only look at that, we'd scoot over some issues that do affect most agencies, but they're just not the most prominent of issues. It's not the first thing that hits you as you walk through the door, but they add massive efficiencies. And I'll be honest with you, I love Christian Byfield to bits. He's a lovely, lovely guy. He's a great advocate for the industry. But initially, when somebody introduced the depository to me, I thought, great solution, but is it, do we need this? Is the end of the tenancy process as difficult as they make it out to be? And actually, the feedback that we're getting from some agencies that yes, that sometimes squabbling over what happens to a deposit at the end of a tenancy and what needs to put together all the proof and to negotiate, mediate between the two sides, that yes, in actual fact, that is something that takes up a lot of time. Typically, at the part of the process where the agent isn't actually earning money. Yeah. So you want to sort of
often overlooked.
And if you could shrink the amount of time that you spend on it, then that maybe is the key to you not running a lost leader, which is effectively what that end of tenancy process has always been about. And so we've got, this is now just a very obvious plug for something that's happening this Wednesday, and this Wednesday at 12:30, we've got a live webinar that is going out. It's with the depository, but it's with the three of our major inventory suppliers. So you've got some great names in there: No Letting Go, Inventory Hive, and Inventory Base. And Depository have built really great integrations with each of these major industry suppliers to try and sort of make that end of tenancy process as efficient as possible. And the claim is that you can shrink effectively 90 minutes of work all the way down. And you'll learn how on this webinar.
That doesn't work with the misses as well, does it? 90 minutes down into 5. That'll be amazing.
We can make it shrink. We can make it bigger. Whatever you want, Simon.
We have the power. That's so that's really good, isn't it? Because so what you're getting across as well here is that some of the strategic advice and consultants we do is as well often around suppliers, isn't it? So we kind of, I know we've loosely, in my simplistic way, we've called ourselves a bit like the Cilla Black of prop tech, don't we? Where we say, look, these guys over here have got a nurturing tool. These guys here have a prospecting tool. Together, the two need to be working together because there's a couple of reasons. You either do the integration because it helps improve both products per se and the experience for the clients, or you do it because you're trying to get into the client base. And it's perfectly reasonable to want to do it for both reasons, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think what comes from most MOTs when when we ask them that question, the answer, as David alluded to, is always, more instructions. More instructions, more revenue. And actually the solution isn't necessarily always a product which generates more instructions, supposedly. It's actually the solution is by streamlining lots of other parts of a process, which will give you more time, or your staff more time for revenue generating activity. And rather than looking for that sort of golden bullet, it's look at all of the other areas where you can improve service, improve consumer experience and user experience, and then use all of that saving into the revenue generating.
That is the key.
I tell you what sticks out for me there, though, David, as well, and Rich, when you're talking there, is it strikes me as well, Christian and the depository is another great reason for our existence, and another thing there. So Christian has obviously created this out of a real world challenge in his own business, and in his own world as well. He's going to do great as well there, but with us hopefully able out there to start shouting about how fantastic they are, that route to world domination should be shorter for him, shouldn't it? Because actually, I mean, I think they've already gone out and they've nailed, you know, they were known as doing well with some of the strong independents, you know, but your Paramounts, your location, but they've gone now out into the likes of Romans as well, haven't they? And that side of things. So this is now a product that's actually just got into that wonderful sweet spot, hasn't it, where everyone's keeping an eye on it.
And this is a big moment of kerfuffle honesty. One of the issues that we struggle with, and we need to promote, part of our role is to promote what it is that the suppliers are doing and to get that message across to the agents. One of the things we struggle with is where the solution is niche, and it's not just lead generation. Is getting that message across, because that's equally, sometimes, as Rich says, it's equally as important as the lead generation activity, or at best actually frees your staff up to be able to go and do what Tom Panis would call dollar productive behavior, and that's what you want. And another area that we touched on this week, in fact, we recorded something with the guys over at Patterson Auctions. Is that, again, it sounds counterintuitive for us to be having conversations in the middle of the biggest sort of buying frenzy that the market has ever seen the past couple of years. Why would you consider, as an agent, auctions as opposed to private treaty? So all we read about in the newspapers is record prices being achieved. The dreaded best and final is a regular fixture of most estate agency conversations these days when they're managing sales. But this conversation that I had with Richard at Patterson is actually quite an eye-opener, because the truth is we demonized auctions wrongly within our kind of private treaty world, because we've seen them as competing with us, as opposed to something that we should actually embrace and bring on as part of a solution. And as Richard will tell you, any offer that you get on a property, even when you've done your best and final process, that you've got no real way of knowing that you've picked a winner that's going to stay all the way to the end, and they're not going to chip you and so on. The only way to do that is to get to exchange of contracts, and there is no process within the industry that tackles that age-old question of getting people sale ready. You've got your auction pack prepared, you've got your searches done, you've answered all your inquiries up front, but to be able to actually exchange contracts once the hammer falls, you can't beat it.
I agree with you. To me, I mean, I know I'm not from your world, but it seems just every business, when I've seen it, whether it's been over here or obviously over in Australia, where the land of milk and honey, as it were, there's just so much to like from that process too. So to have guys like Patterson's leading you down that, you know, that path that they themselves went down is pretty much a no-brainer.
Yeah, I mean, these are solutions again put together by sort of ex-agents, so they understand what the conversation with the vendors like. And we understand also that the tone of those conversations are likely to have to change over the next 6 months as the market changes. So we need to just make sure that this turned out to be an educational piece more than anything else. And in actual fact, it's going into our campus system, because cool. I think that unless you're educating your members of staff on perhaps the advantages of auction, then how on earth have you ever done your duty under the Estate Agents Act? You need to make the vendor aware of all and any means of disposal. And you don't need to see it as a threat. You just need to add it to your collection of skills and things that you know that you can deliver. So there are a ton of great auction partners out there. By no means are Pattinson's the only ones. Yes, they are a very safe pair of hands, and they're a great, they've got a great reputation. But there are a load of others out there as well, and it's a sector that genuinely doesn't get enough love from agents sometimes. So
it doesn't get enough, and you're absolutely right there. So whilst everyone again for years just focused with literally just laser focus on the online agents and shouting at purple this and purple that and everything else there, and you know, some rather silly claims of this was going to be 20% of the market, 50% of the market. What people missed in all this was where auctions was going, wasn't it? Was on a geometric increase in terms of, and unlike online agency, you can't see a similar fallback like that, can you, in the world of auctions? Because again, one of the lovely things that we have as an option, sometimes we don't manage to get around everyone, but we will do hopefully over time, is the guys invited me in there and showed me the setup. And sometimes you never know whether it's going to be like a, you know, like the Wizard of Oz, and it's all this, on the face of it, it's like a right move operation, but it's actually, as I said, one guy hidden behind a curtain. They have put so much time, energy, and resources into making that such a hub of activity.
And whilst, you know, you have to go into it a lot deeper than this. Ultimately, if you ask any agent what the biggest problem at the moment would be, it would be multiple offers on every property.
Yeah.
And the time it takes from sale agreed to exchange being 16 weeks.
Yeah.
And auction, accepting that not every property is suitable, auction solves both of those issues.
Yeah, straight away.
And do you know what the other single biggest factor that is plaguing estate agents at the moment? This is based on quality conversations that we're having with agents up and down the country, but fall through rates are at an all-time high. We've got some valuers out there, so surveyors that are getting nervous. So we're seeing a lot of things being returned on valuation. We're also getting buyers the sense that there was something that was driving them during that whole stamp duty frenzy. The fact that if they didn't secure something, they were going to really miss the boat altogether. Yeah. That sort of pressure is no longer there. So the propensity for a buyer's head to be turned mid-transaction, either by something new that's come to the market, or just by getting the sort of last-minute jitters. How many, you know, news headlines do they need to read about cost of living going up before somebody that is in the process of buying a house goes, hang on, guys, should we just look at this again? And so if you want to avoid that happening, again, auctions are great. It knocks that whole question of fall-throughs off the agenda altogether.
And vendor commitment. So I'm hearing from a lot of people as well, like you say, challenges with pipeline, but a lot of vendors giving up. So they've achieved a price, and all of a sudden, whether they're moving up the ladder, moving down the ladder, moving off the ladder, there's just that nervousness at the moment, and a lot of them are just giving up. So auction is a way of getting a degree of commitment.
And I would argue, whereas one of your arguments might be that auction narrows the kind of buyers that you can talk to, I'd argue that the ones that are able to compete in an auction scenario are ready. They are literally ready to go. And again, bearing in mind that not every property will be suitable for auction, but a vendor that is willing to go into auction, again, is a committed seller. So really, there's nothing that beats it for an estate agent's peace of mind sometimes as well. So an interesting results. If I were to sort of do it, in fact, I might do that as part of one of my next shows. We might do auction or private treaty, because if I said to you, okay, let's do it now, Richard, I would like you to close your eyes, please. Go on, you.
David, we've played this game before.
Close your eyes. Close your eyes. Come on.
Isn't that what we're doing at the stand at EA Masters?
No, that's something different. Okay, Rich, close your eyes, and I want you to describe to me what a standard auction property looks like.
Ultimately, you're going to suggest a rundown, windowless, terraced house where the slate's been taken off the roof, aren't you? That's your perception.
Sold to the man over there. Yeah, exactly. That's what the misconception has been, but that's what the perception for many, many years, that it's only suitable for distressed stock, for distressed sales, for things that that is just too ugly to put out there. But actually, during this conversation that I had with the auctioneers, they reported some recent successes. I think so. One of the stories was they had an agent that had suggested bringing their house to auction. At the time, the vendor had 3 or 4 different valuations that all projected the final amount at around 750. This agent decided that they were going to take it to auction. They did. They achieved something in the region of 810 in the end. So really sort of, blowing out the water, all those misconceptions that taking it to auction is actually going to leave you short rather than maximizing it. So some really interesting results there on what you would almost call premium properties.
Yeah. But I keep coming back to this whenever, and it's not me just doing the old showing off when I went to Australia to watch the Ashes and then managed to remember to see an estate agent so I could claim my expenses. But I remember talking to the owner, one of the owners of James Connell from Marshall White, who is, along with Jealous Craig, who is the leading agencies down in that Melbourne, very strong down there. And he came over here and he just couldn't believe what he called our broken system, and that's all there. But one of the things I think he was talking at the time, it was when Vince Courtney was at Romans, he said, look guys, he says, you seem to have this impression, probably because, people the likes of Simon Whale and Josh are over here saying how brilliant it is there. But you're talking as if we've always done auctions and that's all we've ever done down that eastern coast of it. He says we've had to educate the public over the last 20 to 30 years, and that is the timescale you're talking about here, that yes, it isn't just it isn't the castles or the crack dens that you're getting rid of. It can be, it can be right for many different sorts of properties there, and it's that as it gradually then starts to take place in the public's persona as just being another one, that's when the magic really happens.
I think it's two points there. I think we need to, as an industry, probably get with it and start to inject some glamour into auction, the way that the Aussies do. I mean,
You've watched Selling Sunset as well, haven't you?
Yeah, well, that's something genuinely that they do really, really well. I mean, nobody beats the Aussies for vendor paid advertising and promotion that they do out there. And it doesn't hurt, Rich, that every day looks like summer. And you've got some great.
I always love that. Like it never rains in Australia. It's sort of like, what do you do? Well, you know what? They come inside the house.
But they famously, if you watch some of, I've only ever seen Panos do this, but I'm sure other auctioneers do, where they stand outside the actual property in the middle of the street, and you've got a very interactive auction process there, but it's very dynamic because it's very pumped.
Oh mate, I've almost bought 4 properties over there, and I only stopped by for a cup of coffee. So yeah. Okay,
I think we could do that here, and I think also what we need to do is educate buyers that auction doesn't hurt, because some people will hear auction and go, oh, there's no way that I can compete at auction because I need to get a mortgage together. So there are auction processes these days that allow for people to have an extended completion time so that they can go and get conventional lending on it. So it doesn't have to be that kind of unconditional hammer down either. So we can tailor the process, but it's certainly something that needs, I think, more thought. But we could do with bringing it indoors and kind of making it our own as agents, because
you've got to have a chat with Luke. Surely Luke's got to be bang up for doing that down at Knightsbridge, hasn't he? Come on, he's done everything. He's nicked everything else the Aussies ever had to do.
I'd love to see people auctioning properties outside the actual property in the front garden, but I think our laws restrict that kind of salesmanship. But hey, maybe.
Never mind. Okay. Well, look. Anyway, that's a brilliant resume over that whole auction one. So I'll be keeping an eye out for. Did you say Wednesday then? This Wednesday?
Well, so the depository one is Wednesday at 12:30, and the Patterson one should also come out this week. It's a series of discussions that you can sort of keep up to date on. And again, no one's trying to sell you anything. If you want to sign up to something, you can do. But this is an education piece.
And the key thing to remember
is what the advantages are to your business.
Yeah, the key one to remember is, look, if you ever miss one of these, you don't watch them live, just go to the landing page on kerfuffle.com of any of those, and all the interviews or webinars or panel shows we've ever done are quite happily there for you just to look and review. And before you even have to put your head up and get chased by a salesperson, you can decide whether that's a company that deserves and warrants further attention. Guys, I'm just conscious of time, just going to wind up. But is anyone who I think we had about 20 to 30 suppliers a month. Would that be right, Rich? You're Caesar style in terms of letting them on and off the site on a monthly basis. Is that about right?
Who we're speaking to?
Yeah, who we're actually adding. Yeah.
Yeah, so we're speaking to about 30 suppliers. As time has gone on, we've got better and better with honesty. Whereby actually, there's lots of international products looking to come over, suppliers looking to come over, and we'll look at it and see if there's localization projects which need doing and so on, because we want to get to a point where every product on the platform is at least fit for purpose. So 30, of which probably 20 will end up on the platform.
Okay. And Dave, you were talking about one that caught your eye. Was it Help Me Fix? Was it?
Yeah. So it's an interesting part of our processes, if you like, is when we talk about property management. It's always, how do you handle your repairs, and it's one of those nightmares of managing contractors, and very often a classic call out that you will get is that my boiler won't come on. It's just not working. I don't know what to do with it. I've pressed all the buttons. It ain't working. Have you tried to top up the pressure? I don't know how to do that. I don't want to start fiddling with it. And you inevitably will then on that kind of call end up where you cannot help the tenant. The tenant doesn't want to deal with anything because they don't feel confident enough to get involved. And you'll end up having to send out a contractor. It'll be a call out, and it could be something as simple as just topping up the pressure on a boiler, which literally is just a tap. Even you could do it, Whaley.
I was going to say, do we test him?
Even
Whaley, go and top up your boiler now.
Does it pass the whale test? If so, then 99% of
but literally a lot of the call outs could be like that. So what Help Me Fix does is effectively it will slot in, it works alongside other repair reporting software, so it works very nicely with things like FixFlow, but effectively your tenant will be connected to an ex-engineer who will then talk them through different scenarios and check at least whether or not this is something that could be easily fixed without a call out, or in fact, does it need somebody to come out and actually look at it? And one agent that we spoke to in particular reckons that they've saved their landlords about $9.5 grand in repairs over time in using this solution.
How long's that? What time is that over?
Well, this has been running now, I think, since before Christmas, to be fair. So it's had quite a fair run up. But the point is that they are convinced that there have been several scenarios in which the engineers at Help Me Fix have been able to talk a tenant through repairs. So this isn't all about getting your tenants to just do their own repairs. They're not going to. Right, now once you're on the roof, you want to make sure.
Rod Hull.
Exactly. So clearly, I want to point out to all the viewers at home, don't try this on your own. You must do this under the guidance of a professional engineer. But basically, they have got people with multi-disciplines in terms of various different bits of that contracting process. But it allows all of your repair requests to be properly verified by a human being, responded to on the app. It's dead easy to use, and it sort of seamlessly integrates. So I actually like this one because it's one that perhaps visibly isn't adding to your bottom line necessarily, but what it is doing is it's definitely enhancing customer experience for a landlord. It is definitely saving your landlord's money. And I don't know many agents that can claim to have saved landlords money in the longest of times.
And look,
well, because if you think about it, £9 isn't actually an awful lot of money. If a call out charge is 100 quid, that's only 90 call out charges, isn't it, over a period of time? And my guess would be you could potentially even upsell that to your landlords, couldn't you? That premium plus managed survey.
No, it's lovely.
I think as a landlord, I would also go to bed at night thinking these guys do get they want my tenants to be happy, but they also are trying to protect me as much as possible, and they're doing their best to verify what is a genuine repair and what is actually something that can be very, very safely done at arm's length distance over the phone at home.
Two things. First of all, it is EA Masters Supplier of the Year voting stops in just under 3 weeks now. So August the 19th is the deadline day for it. Don't make sure you share your love. As you said, this only works if you let people know who's good, who's not. Everybody who puts in multiple suppliers on there as well, we at Kerfuffle have said that we will build you a free dashboard where you can, the most important thing is getting the right tech stack, but you can make some really serious savings as well. I think it's well known. There's a couple of videos out there with the amazing Spencer from Paramount, where was it £65,000 he was able to save over the course of a year, just through best practice of looking what's in your tech stack, looking what's not necessary, looking at what's duplicated, and we'll build that for everybody who goes in there and puts in multiple suppliers on that voting. So go to kerfuffle.com/EA Masters, and there's a list of around 700 suppliers, so you do need to wait for it to load. And please give your net promoter scores, or what did you call it, your trust ratings? I much prefer that.
I like it, yeah. So
trust rating 0 out of 10.
If you've got someone that you dealt with and that you genuinely feel they've got your back, shout about it, let the world know.
And then can I finish, if this is okay, with one of my lovely enhancements on the site that I had to fight Richard for, because he said it was an act of arrogance and ego, which I took as a compliment. So
a challenge.
He said, would it deliver us any money? And I said, as if that's what I did Kerfuffle for. So this is the key industry influencers. Okay, can you see that okay on your screen? Okay,
I can.
You could. Okay, so this is where we've got the great and the good in there. So we can go here, we can sort via alphabetical, you can sort via supplier, via agent, you can share this to your friends. And what we're trying to do here is just encourage people to, first of all, let us know who they think should be on here. So if there's somebody there that's been a major part of your life within the industry, has influenced you, let us know. And as long as we deem them that appropriate, we'll happily put them on here, and sometimes we'll do an interview as well to thank them for the time. You can go in here. We have the wonderful Frank Webster of Finders Keepers in there, just so you can see all the information about Frank in there. When he's done blog articles, you can see who his who his favorite suppliers are. I always think that's quite interesting to be able to go through and see who the most important people in the industry back. Also, which books have inspired them, and even down to quotes and things like that. But now, one of the things that we've just added, we've had that kind of leaderboard of key influencers in there for some time. As long as you log into the site, which again is free of charge, you can actually vote for these people. So we're going to have who's hot and who's not. We're going to have the Simon Bradbury top 30 list. We're going to have the Simon Whale top 100 list.
Don't come back to us and say, oh, Richard Durant, he's not an influencer, I don't think he should be on that list. You should come back to us and tell us who does feature. Tell us who your heroes are, who inspires you, who helps you along the way on a day-to-day basis, because I think that is
exactly right. If you think Heather Staff deserves to be in there, Heather's, look, we've just launched this, so people are wanting to vote. So we are going to be doing key influencer leaderboards, and that's been my dream for how long, Rich?
At least 3 years.
See,
but only because you wanted yourself involved, and that's the biggest argument we've had.
Even my arrogance, I haven't put myself on there yet.
You said, "Can we code it?"
You.
He said, "Can we code it so I always win regardless?" That was what the argument was about.
Now, that's made the next bit really awkward. No, it hasn't. Okay, guys, there's our first episode of the Kerfuffle Klub show. WMD, Whale, Mince and Durant. We hope you've enjoyed it, and we will be doing these fairly regularly from now on. What's going to be coming up next time, which I can tell you the suppliers are going to be pouring over, are our very first awards, aren't they? So I am particularly excited after, as they say, Simon Whale is never more than 5 feet away from an award. So this time we're going to be giving them out, and there are some there's some surprises, and then there's some really well-deserved businesses in there as well, aren't there? So watch out for the next show where we'll be talking all things awards. For tonight, thank you, gents, for staying on so late. Mr. Mince, Mr. Durant, thank you very much.
Much love.
See you soon.
Sayonara.